This is probably my last video on the Bard class, other than maybe videos of me killing a named or doing something that I think is cool or fun. And whether you guys think that or not is another issue. After I finish this video, I will probably get to work on refreshing and revamping my Necromancer videos, because the May patch consolidated the wound line, and that significantly changed the way a Necromancer does a burn, and it changed root rotting and a lot of other stuff like that, minor stuff. But it basically, my old videos are no longer as accurate as I hope they were when I first put them out. This Bard video is going to be all over the map, because it's going to get into theory, my ideas, things that may need to be tested, things that may prove to be wrong. It's just going to be a lot of extras that you can use and take as you want or not use. I'm going to get into some really different methods of putting together melodies, and I'm going to explain how I put together my melodies. And some of those will be controversial. Some people won't agree with it. But let's get into it. So, like I said, all over the map. First thing I want to talk about is one of the things I get tells from bards is saying, hey, what's with this? My epic is locking up my song bar. I'm really having a problem with the epic. And that's because anytime you use an item, it's going to break your melody. And in particular with the epic, but it sometimes will lock up the song bar. I don't have a panacea that will cure everything, but what I do is I stop song before I start a new melody, and stop song before I cast an item like the epic. And that seems to help somewhat, because it has to do with if it's about to go to the next song and your item goes off, it can lock up your song bar, and that's frustrating as heck. Let's see. Oh, and also, because I'm not a rating bard, I tend to put my epic and fierce eye at the beginning of my melody key. So if they're up, they go off. If they're not up, those lines are ignored. If I was a rating bard, then I might want to time my epic and fierce eye a little more closely, and I also probably want a line that lets the group know that I'm casting fierce eye and epic, because a shaman will want to cast his epic in conjunction with your epic. Generally, there's good synergy that way. I talk about the irony of carpal tunnel syndrome, and this has occurred to me recently as I was playing a bard more significantly. When I first started in June or July of 2000 playing a bard, they didn't have the melody key, so you still had to type 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 to cast your songs. You twisted your songs manually. The irony is now we can use the melody key, and it will set up a rotation of songs that we want to cast, just like a wizard or mage is doing, but they may be hitting a key for every cast of their spell. Usually they'll bind, so that, say, the J key will cast whatever spell is next in line of their nuke rotation. But they're still hitting keys, whereas I can start my melody, I can hit the one key to start my melee attack, and then I can back off, and every now and then I'll hit the 4 key or whatever key it is to hit my bellows. And I'm going, oh geez, bellows is up again. Okay, so lazy. So that's melodies. I talk about mercenaries and pulling just briefly. If you are a pulling bard, and I hope you are, because it's a lot of fun, it's one of the real strengths of a bard, you're going to quickly learn that your mercenary can F you up pretty bad. Especially if you're doing pickup groups or groups that don't practice good discipline or haven't been taught how to handle pulls. So, for instance, you'll be bringing back a mob, and a mage or a beast lord gets anxious, and they send in their pet early. And so you're now fighting farther away from camp than you'd like. And what's significant is you're fighting far enough away from camp that if you're marked as puller, your mercenary won't be healing you. So ideally, you need to teach your group, do not touch the mobs until it's right in camp. and then snag aggro right away. It's and I find that there are things that are very helpful when it comes to setting, like set an assist. A lot of groups, you don't do that. Why do you need an assist? Well, one is you can, working with your extended target window, you can set it so number one is the group assist target, and then you can set it so that your melee key, you have you can do it a social melee key where it'll automatically hit your X target one. I mean, you can just make life easier for you, things like that. I sometimes with groups, I just find it's easier to have a passive and stance keys. Turn my merc on, turn my merc off, turn my merc on, turn my merc off. I actually do that when I'm with a rogue too. You can put the rogue on a rogue mercenary. Put him on burn, put him on passive, and then you control when he goes in, and you just have him burn continuously, and you watch his aggro, and when it starts hitting the 90% range, put him on passive, or put him on if you find that some other stance works, and you will solve the problem of losing your merc to aggro very often. Now, the way I play a bard, and that way I play all of my classes, is a very active approach. I get on a bard, and I can only play for about 90 minutes, and then I have to stop. Maybe an hour. I mean, because this is not a bot bard. This is playing him, 100%. You're trying to do everything you possibly can to eke out every bit of abilities from this class, and you do it with all the classes. Those are my videos. I hope they're showing kind of things you can do to get the most out of that class. You should get higher DPS than you'll see in kind of pickup groups a lot of times. So let's talk Invisibility and Fade keys. Do the double Invisibility Fade. It's really sweet. If you've ever pulled in mixed zones, we've got alive and undead, you know how difficult it can be when you can only cast Fade. I'm working with a lower level bard right now. I think it's level 89 at this moment. He just made a couple levels. And I do not have silent displacement, and I do not have double invis. And there's a few other weaknesses. So it's very interesting playing at this lower level with a different set of tools. I generally throw in Silo's Accelerando, or maybe hide corpses. If I have extra space on my hotbars, I'll put in things that I would routinely need to do in order to avoid having to think about them. You cast your invisibility key, it recasts Silos for you. So you're already, every 5 minutes you need to do that. I did a video on targeting and cycling keys already. Fade is great, but there's some other tricks like planar overdose potions, having single target DA memorized. Leer Leap is always just amazing. Anytime you get stunned or snared, try hitting Leer Leap. A lot of times it'll save your tush. When I do charm tanking, I usually do a charm break key. And when you're charm tanking or charming mobs, you want to recharm, don't use X target, because the charmed mob will often fall off the X target window and charm breaks, whether you do it as a controlled fade break or it just runs its timer out or resists. Circle power 4, go ahead and get flagged for the Field of Strife. And at this point, if you're a level 115 bard, go in, you can either solo it or probably more easily do it with a tank or something, or even a pet class, and get your Circle of Power 4 item. It's really easy. I may do a video on showing that. I talk about the magic of rocket boots for bards, especially in zones where you can't use Lev. For instance, you're in Howling Stones and you want to go to the East Wing. There's a missing bridge there. You don't want to go all the way around. Use your rocket boots. You can just jump over it. But more importantly, especially like I said in zones that don't allow Lev, if there's a height difference, sometimes you're not able to get the line of sight you need to cast a song. As a bard, though, even if you're moving, as long as you're in line of sight, and then even if you fall out of line of sight, after, as long as that spell will continue, the song will continue to play. So you can do some fun things with rocket boots where you jump up and you mez a mob, or you jump up and charm a mob, and then he comes after you. I mean, there's just it's rare, but it's a kind of a fun little thing. I like to put a bag down in my line of items because you run out of room, and rather than have one or two bars located to all the clickies and stuff, the stuff you don't use very often, just put them in one bag, hotkey that bag, and then you can open it anytime you need. Have hide corpse and corpse drag keys, very useful. As a bard, never forget that you can be casting your songs as you move. You can be casting any item as you move, including a gate potion. So say, don't just stand there, start your gate potion and keep moving, run away. You can be casting your chants as you're kiting a mob, even a summoning mob. If you're running away with bard speed, you're going to miss some portion of the damage you would be taking. So if your health gets to a certain point, like 30%, just you come up with a number and say, okay, at this point, I am going to disengage. I'll keep my melody going, but I'm going to run away, or run in circles. I found out you can shrink your mercenary. I suppose I knew that already, but it was kind of cool. There is the Phosphorant Rapier of Dim Light. You can get that in EWTK, Tainted, Western Karana. Anyways, it used some of that Marks of Valor you got from doing more gribbles than you should. And you can buy the Phosphorant Rapier of Dim Light, which gives you Amplification 4, Harmony 4. It's one of those shadow buffs, and it's the highest level of that buff, and it doesn't cost much. Tokens of Resurrection. As a bard, you generally are going to survive if you choose to survive. And so there's nothing like bringing a tank back to turn a wipe into a heroic mover. Again, charm, the DPS has not kept up, so you're not charming a mob for DPS. Frankly, it's probably too much work. But they are nice meat shields. I do use them. Or, you can take a mob out of contention and send it against the named, and or whatever it is you're attacking. There you are, a little extra DPS. And then you can break that charm with Fade at any time you want, or just Invis. Which aura to use? We almost always, as bards, it seems to go with the DPS aura, Madrigar in my case. But the fact is, the difference between aura, the combination of aria and the aura is very little. So it might be helpful to go with the regen aura to give your group more mana and more hit points. It's something, a choice to be made. If they can get off a few more spells, it'll often make up for the difference in DPS. Now, if you have a really hot berserker group, if you're in a raid and you are in a melee group, then I'm not saying use your regen aura. You don't need it. Or if your group is never out of mana, nobody's dying from lack of hit points, then go with the DPS aura. Back off, run in circles, kite, you're a bard. You don't have to stand still. So that's this page. Final tip. If you hate levitation as much as I do, especially when you're in indoor zones, then you can block the specific levitation portion of Shari's Sonorous Clouding. So you can keep the extra speed, you can keep the invisible, the regular, the sea invisible, the invisible undead, and you can avoid having the levitation. I like levitation in outdoor zones, but when I'm in going through the worm caves or in almost any indoor zone, it can be a pain, and so I just block the lev portion. Well, that's it for that. Anyways, I may break this video into part, in which case this would be the final end. If so, you'll see a part 2 later. Talk to you guys later.